Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for David O. Russell's Amsterdam. Do me a favor, try to be optimistic. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric. Joining me for this spoiler-free review, well, we have the doctor in the house, the dankest dude, Mr. Darcy Hudson. How are you, buddy? I figured if I go by J-Law, I'm the law and you're the doctor. So, you're the doctor, I'm the lawyer. Okay. You see how it goes?
Okay. Yeah, we're the duo. Yep. I'm good. Kind of confused and I think disappointed after this movie. Yeah,
no, I totally get you. Well, let's get into it. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this is our spoiler-free review for David O. Russell's Amsterdam, which is in theaters October 7th. A huge thanks to our friends at 20th Century Studio Canada for inviting us out for an early screening so we could bring you this review nice and early. So if you don't know, then let me fill you in on what Amsterdam is about. From 20th Century Studios and New Regency and acclaimed filmmaker David O. Russell comes Amsterdam, an original crime epic about three close friends who find themselves at the center of one of the most shocking secret plots in American history. A fascinating and richly intricate tale that brilliantly weaves historical fact with fiction for a timely cinematic experience. The film stars a stacked cast, which includes Academy Award winner Christian Bale, two-time Oscar nominee Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Alessandro Nivola, Andrea Riseborough, Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Rock, Matthias Schoenaerts, Michael Shannon, Mike Myers, Taylor Swift, Timothy Olyphant, Zoe Saldana, and Oscar winner Rami Malek, and two-time Oscar winner Robert De Niro. This is written and directed by five-time Oscar nominee David O. Russell. Amsterdam is stacked also with a slew of producers, but one producer name that I wanted to call out is a Toronto resident, Drake. He is a executive producer on this movie, which I think is interesting. He partnered with David O. Russell to bring this movie to life. Again, this movie, Amsterdam, opens in U.S. theaters October 7th, and here in Canada as well, October 7th, 2022. So let's get to it, Darcy. What worked for you about this movie?
I think the list of cast definitely got me into the movie, and their performances 100%. Were all incredible. So that was probably one of the standout points from this movie was the cast delivering on everything that their character was given. Christian Bale was incredible, playing the drug-addled doctor and like a post-war vet. It was a very like gritty character that he brought such heart and humor to. So I really enjoyed his performance. And again, the whole cast was amazing. So that's definitely what worked in this movie was that massive star-studded cast.
Yes, this cast was stacked. I don't know if everyone worked for me specifically, but that being said, Christian Bale is 100% sort of the anchor to this movie. And, the trailer, and if you've seen the marketing for it, it does really highlight it's a trio, the three friends who are together. I got to say, as something that we will elaborate on further, that didn't really work for me. I don't think they spent enough time to really establish this close bond between them. But that being said, Christian Bale acting as this sort of war vet doctor who's just, kind of a drug addict at the same time, I think his performance alone helped anchor this movie. And then, you have a plethora of other characters in and around that, were serviceable, and some were very outstanding. I think Mike Myers definitely, he was a character of someone without necessarily going, full Austin Powers or Goldmember, if you will. He was the right amount, and it felt very natural. And I think that can be said about the entire cast and their portrayals of their character. Like even Chris Rock was very Chris Rock in this movie, but 1930s Chris Rock. So 100%. The cast is the reason why you would check out this movie. apart from that, I also think like the set design, we are talking about something that takes place in, 1930s, I would guess, right? Sort of the time period, because it's in and around leading into the Second World War. And I got to say, set design, costume design, the look, everything really did fit. It's very similar to something like American Hustle, which, felt very of its time. This felt of the 1930s, the set design, the staging. And this is very familiar for David O. Russell. He does these sort of period piece movies that talk about American history. So I think that they nailed that. It definitely felt like a story of the time. The costume design, everything was really embraced for this time period to help tell this story accurately. But outside of that, I don't know if I have much more positive things to say, which really does sort of suck, because I love David O. Russell, because I love David O. Russell, and I love the movies that he's done. And I honestly, like, just to kind of start off what didn't work is that this movie feels like it has all of the right elements to be a good David O. Russell movie, but it just doesn't actually feel like a David O. Russell movie. It lacked the charm. It lacked the sort of emotional resonance that I think many of his films have. Like, he has such a way in his other movies to hook line you with the stakes and get you really committed, and then there's a good emotional payoff. I don't think this movie has any of that, sadly. I think this is more about what we were talking about in before, where it's about who's in it rather than what it's about.
I mean, I do feel like it started off really setting up the stakes, and I was finding myself invested, but it was more that payoff that was nowhere to be found. When we did get to the resolution of the movie, it was lackluster, and I found myself disappointed after how they had set up what could have been potentially a really cool, payout, and it just fizzled, in my opinion. And I'm not familiar with his other work, but this film just seems like someone trying to capture like the quirkiness of a Wes Anderson or like almost a Tarantino style thing, where it's all about having these characters pop up for their 5-minute scene, but have them steal the scene before you move on to something else. And it fell short because it was trying to do something like that, I think.
100%. I think you took the words right out of my mouth. It's too concerned about projecting a vibe that feels somewhat emulated from a Quentin Tarantino, a Wes Anderson, or let's even go something more current, Knives Out. These are large cast ensemble movies that have a resonating story that I think gets people hooked and invested. However, this movie just completely lacks that story, lacks that commitment, and it falls flat. It's very apparent that things are written loosely rather than very concisely and meaningful. Everyone plays their part, and there's just a quirkiness to it. There's a vibe, and I really do think like what was the focus here for this movie was trying to emulate that, was trying to bring this ensemble, this stacked ensemble cast to tell a story that, in my opinion, if this is, it does say like a lot of this actually does happen. Like that's their opening line, right? In the trailer and in the movie. If this did actually happen, I don't know if this movie does justice to telling the story well, in my opinion. I don't know if it's, the topic is really interesting. We're talking about pre-World War II events and things that lead to sort of the Nazism and stuff like that, and American society, so on and so forth. I just don't know if this story if this film does justice to that story and what it's trying to tell. And yeah, I think it definitely leans more on who's in it rather than what it's about, in my opinion. Whereas all those other movies that we've mentioned by Tarantino, Rian Johnson, it's just there's a story there that hooks you, that has you invested. And even if those people do come in, those cameos, those characters, they're still integral, but they don't necessarily steal the show from the story, or they serve their part. Yeah, I think that's where this movie really does fall short, for me at least, is that it didn't have the story. It was more concerned about selling this movie based on the cast.
No, again, I think that it suffered because they were trying to have so many people show up in this thing without really settling or nailing down the story they were trying to tell at the time. So,
and I also think that, again, you do have this trio of friends led by Christian Bale, John David Washington, and Margot Robbie. And while Christian Bale was fantastic, like we were saying, I gotta say though, John David Washington and Margot Robbie were just okay. And for a movie that focused on their friendship and their bond, I don't think I got that. Like I never really connected or believed like the three of them were such close friends. And I think they kind of blew past that part very quickly to say like, well, this is who the characters are. This is how they became friends. Let's move on to the rest. It fell short. And, again, I don't know if that relationship was really believable.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting choice for them to choose to not really show much of that as like in their storytelling method throughout the movie. The fact that we got this relationship forming moments, the ones that were really crucial to these characters, we just got like a voiceover snippet of, as opposed to really diving into these characters forming those bonds. So I think that again, that's where it suffers, is that like all these relationships are implied and stuff like that, but without really seeing them be formed, it's kind of hard to believe them, especially when we're dropped back into the story when we're supposed to believe that this group of friends maybe hasn't been together this whole time and they're finally coming back together. It's very odd to be like, well, what was the relationship before if not better than what it is now? Like it was very up in the air. So yeah.
I think again, it this movie, what it really suffers from is very much an incomplete script, which is so incredibly unfortunate because given David O. Russell's track record, he definitely knows how to balance story with visuals. And, again, I think that's what I was hoping for with this. But enough said. Let's get into our final thoughts and our overall score, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 glass eyeballs. And just let our listeners know, Darce, do you think they should go see this in theaters, or is this something they should wait for? Because it's probably going to hit Disney Plus at some point before the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd probably say wait, if only because I don't know, it's just it didn't scream a like theater going requirement to see this thing. It looked great, and I'm sure it would look great on a small screen too, with like everything you said. The set design was so good that you could probably still find yourself drawn into this world on the smaller screen. And again, like we've been saying this whole thing, if you just watch this movie if you want to see some fun performances from the cast, because you're going to get great performances, just the story that these performances are wrapped around kind of falls short in my opinion. And as much as I love the cast, and like I think I enjoyed the other two more than you did, so the trio for me really worked despite the lacks in the storytelling, but that can only do so much for a score. So I'm gonna have to give this one a 2.8 out of 5 glass eyeballs. I was really hyped for this one, seeing the cast and seeing the premise and stuff like that, but then that fizzling out of the storytelling about halfway through is where it kind of just brought me down and brought me out of it a bit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I'm totally on the same page in that I think that this is a movie that I would wait for to stream rather than run out to theaters to see it. In all honesty, it's good. It's not great. I'm a David O. Russell fan. I love his movies. But this definitely did fall short. This movie's more about who's in it rather than what it's about. The actors are very underused and I think poorly written, and that has a lot to do with the movie getting caught up, as we were talking about, in creating a quirky vibe and for this unique world and, telling this mystery or this story, and, similar to something that's like Adam McKay's films like The Big Short or Don't Look Up, or as I mentioned, Rian Johnson's Knives Out. And these are ensemble cast-led films with compelling stories that do have you hooked. And I think the big difference here is that with Amsterdam, I actually didn't have enough care for the story. I wasn't necessarily hooked. I don't think this movie does justice to the story that it's trying to tell, which I think is important. I think it's very important. It's a pre-World War II story. It talks about how, elements of what we would come to see in Nazi Germany existed in the United States well before. And I think that's a relevant topic given what's going on in the world and what we are seeing all across the world, especially in the US with a high level of racism. So there's an honesty and a relevancy to this story. It's just, I think it's missing the mark with telling that story properly. And I think really at the end of the day, like I started saying this, is like, I'm a huge David O. Russell fan, and I think this lacked David O. Russell's charm. He has such a way with his films to get you hooked, to get you invested. In his other movies, there's just such an appreciation for the story that he's telling. Here, I just didn't feel that. So I'm with you. I'm giving this one 2.5 out of 5 glass eyeballs. Well, that is it for our spoiler-free review for Amsterdam, written and directed by David O. Russell. Again, a huge thanks to 20th Century Studios Canada for allowing us to take part in this preview screening so we could get you this review nice and early. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more from us, well, be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show and let us know what your thoughts about this movie are once you see it, if you think we're crazy, we just didn't get it, well, you know what? You can reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if you want, you can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other content out for you to enjoy, including our most recent spoiler-free review for Hocus Pocus 2, because the spooky season is upon us. We are in October, so we have our spoiler-free review for that movie, plus a lovely trio of interviews featuring myself, Nate, and Kevin. We had a chance to sit down with the director, Ann Fletcher, and the cast members, Whitney Peak, Belissa Escobedo, Lilia Buckingham, Sam Richardson, and the legendary Doug Jones. We discussed what it was like both joining and returning to this world after the beloved original film released 29 years ago. It's a good time. You can listen to it on podcast feeds, or you can check it out on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. We have a whole bunch of other interviews. They're all on the YouTube channel as well. There's a nice little playlist, so if you want to go check them out, you can go do that. But this week we do have more reviews on the way. We do have a review for Werewolf by Night, Marvel Studios special presentation. It's a Halloween spooktacular directed by Michael Giacchino. And yeah, we'll be dropping that spoiler-free review for you on Thursday, October 6th. And I think we've been talking about it. We'll probably do a spoiler-filled discussion because you know us geeks, we like to get into it, so we'll definitely be breaking that one down, and that'll show up shortly after the release of Werewolf by Night, which is actually hitting Disney Plus this Friday, October 7th, same time as this movie. So you guys will be able to enjoy that and then listen to our in-depth spoiler-filled discussion after. It's going to be a great time. Also, we have 2 watch clubs going on. One for She-Hulk. We're going to be dropping episode 8 later this week. We are doing one for Andor, but it's a bit different. Nate structured it in a way where we're breaking it up into sort of 4 chunks throughout the season, just because there is a very unique storytelling piece to how Andor is explored. So we're going to be doing our next set of episodes after the release of episode 6. But we also have This Week in Geek, which will be coming out Wednesday, covers all the latest news and trailers, so you don't want to miss that. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Darcy, thank you for joining me for this short and sweet review for Amsterdam.
Well, I wish we had more nice things to say about Amsterdam.
Well, you know what?
It's great talking to you.
You know what? I love the country. I haven't been, but I really want to go. And
it's fantastic. Honestly, I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, there you go.
I understand why they like it so much.
Awesome. Well, until next time, as we say,
laters.
Peace.